Hi, my name is Rana,
Hi, I'm Tanish.
and we did our capstone project on how the low socioeconomic background of minority ethnic groups will have detrimental effects on the quality of their education.
So, what exactly is educational inequality and learning gaps? So, education inequality is essentially the distinction between what a student is expected to learn uh, by a certain grade and what they actually learned to that point. So, for example, let's say a student is supposed to learn, is supposed to be on a certain reading level at a certain age, but if they are, let's say, above that or below, then it's considered a learning gap compared to the other peers. So, what are some gaps present in our society today? So, education inequality was still a problem before COVID-19, but it's now even a bigger gap in learning because of COVID-19. So, online classrooms are encouraging social inequalities, be it differences in home furnishings or a lack of internet to even join the call. Extensive research has also concluded that this cannot only put the less advantageous students below their peers in terms of learning, but also impact their years to come. So, the two main ethnic groups affected by educational gaps and learning inequalities is uh, are Black and African Americans, or Hispanic and Latinos. So the main reason we concluded that the education inequality exists mainly in these groups is that um, mainly because Blacks and Latinos have a higher unemployment rate than other ethnic groups like white, and this means that these families have less resources to provide to their kids to eventually use that in their education.
There are a lot of causes for the educational gap. Extensive research has demonstrated that a child's social class is one of the most significant predictors, if not the most popular predictor of their educational success. And it's becoming more clear that performance gaps by through social class take root in the earliest years of a child's life, and they fail to narrow throughout the years to follow. So what that means is that the children who start behind, stay behind, and they're rarely able to make up the lost ground. There are a study done by Emma Garcia and Elaine Weiss in 2017 found that these three things are the main causes for the educational gap: the digital divide, redlining of schools, systemic bias in the educational system. But all of these reasons stem from one major determinant, which is socioeconomic status. Starting with the digital divide, what that means is that not all learners have daily or anytime, anywhere access to high speed internet or a mobile device for learning. There are currently 2.3 million students left to connect at the minimum target speed, but this is mostly in rural and remote areas of the country. About 15% of US households with school aged children do not have a high speed internet connection at home. The statistics are worse for school-aged children in lower income households earning less than 30,000 a year. About one third of these households do not have a high-speed internet connection, compared with just 6% of households earning more than 75,000 per year. Socioeconomic status. How exactly does a person's socioeconomic status impact the quality of education they receive? Socioeconomic status is an economic and sociological combined total measure of a person's work experience and of theirs or their family's economic and social position in relation to others. So there's an undeniable relationship between economic inequalities and education inequalities, which represents a societal failure which that betrays the ideal of the American dream. It can be assumed that people with higher socioeconomic standing will have more access to educational opportunities, while those who have a relatively indistinguishable standing which is attributed to ethnic minorities and people of color, will suffer through a broken system riddled with prejudice and misunderstanding. There is a lot of systemic bias in the educational system. A study in Vanderbilt found that Black students are assigned to gifted and talented programs half as many times as their white counterparts, even with the same scores as their white counterparts. However, this gap decreased exponentially when Black students had Black teachers. It was also shown that white teachers stereotype Black students, assuming they won't finish high school or get a college education. This is another form of systemic racism, which results in lesser quality of education for people of color. Additionally, the same study found that Black students are suspended or expelled at a rate of 3 times more than white students if they have a different race teacher. Going on to redlining of schools, redlining is the practice of denying borrowers access to credit based on the location of property in minority or economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. So, what does that mean? A lot of low-performing schools, which are ones without access to resources or experienced teachers, will be closed down due to lack of funding. And a lot of these schools are located in Black or Hispanic neighborhoods. Once these schools closed, they are replaced with charter schools. And what happens to the students of that used to go to the schools that closed is that they won't have access to the schools in their neighborhood, or they won't be able to afford the charter schools, or the schools in their neighborhood will be grossly underfunded and they will be at a loss for a lack of opportunities that the right counterparts will have access to.
So one quote we found about the educational inequality in our education systems was the nation recognizes its social, civic, and economic strength is directly linked to the strength of its public schools. But if every child is to have an opportunity for success, every student must have a true opportunity to learn. And this was by John H. Jackson, the president of Scott Foundations for Public Education. And essentially, what this means is that uh, uh, they're talking about socioeconomic status and how that is linked to the education of students and how every student should get the same opportunity so that they have the same opportunity to succeed in life.
What we can gather from these resources is that the rising inequality might not be such a major concern if our education, economic, and social protection systems acted as compensatory mechanisms, which means helping individuals, especially children, rise above their birth circumstances and improve their mobility. But what we have seen here is that this is hardly the case. In the education arena, children's socioeconomic status, also referred to as SES, which has income as a key component, is considered the most significant predictor of educational success. As a result of these trends and associations, achievement gaps by social class have grown substantially since the 1960s, especially between children at the highest end of the income distribution and all of the others. This will continue to grow if we don't begin to close the education gap in our society. Thank you.
Thank you.